Hello, welcome back to my podcast. I am so grateful you are joining me again today. It is good to be back together. I am so thankful for those of you who so kindly have given me 5-star reviews and have written notes and words of encouragement. Like I said, I am reading them all, and you truly are bringing me so much joy and so much encouragement. And specifically, Tori Ann, Kate W., and Lucy Sue, the three of you, what you wrote me, thank you. I appreciate it. And Marie, if you're still listening, you know who you are. Your review that you wrote me brought such a smile to my face. Like I felt on top of the world after you wrote a review on my podcast. So just thank you for taking the time to do that. And I hope you are still listening, and I hope you are doing well. And just thank you. Thank you for sticking with me. But I appreciate all of you joining me in this. It is proving to be very healing and helpful for me, and helpful for a lot of you. And those of you who have reached out, like on Instagram and other places, just like, thank you. Like this is a really cool experiment, and I am looking forward to finding out where this leads. But today I'm going to take you down a little bit more of memory lane of our time in Atlanta, Georgia at the Shepherd Center. So we are in the month of March of 2024, and Michael and I are living full-time at the Shepherd Center in Atlanta, Georgia, getting intense rehabilitation, neurotherapy for his anoxic brain injury. Michael doesn't, at this point in time, didn't remember the boys' visit. They had come for their spring break in March with my sister and her husband, and we had a good time together. It was the first time the boys saw Mike, but once they left, it was kind of like out of sight, out of mind as far as his memory goes. And I would talk about it with him. I would remind him, hey, the boys were here. And he would say, what? What do you mean? And I would show him the pictures of us together, show him the videos, and he'd be like, how did I miss that? It was a weird reality with his like very, very short memory loop to know that he and I in the moment were experiencing the same things, but when the next moment came, we were no longer experiencing the same thing because I remembered the past, but Michael did not. And you know, as humans, like we build on each moment of our life. And for this time in his recovery, he is not building on moment by moment. Like it's so weird, but that is what we were in therapy for. That is what we were getting help for. So I will continue on with the story. My birthday is in March, and two of my sisters have a birthday in March. So I decided to fly home for 2 days over the weekend, mid-March. And it was a good choice. It was very hard, very, very hard to leave Michael, but in my place came Michael's brother, one of his brothers, David, and one of his best friends, Travis. They flew from Virginia to Atlanta. We like crossed paths in the air, and they came and they stayed with Michael because I didn't want to leave Michael alone. I knew Michael would not do well alone. This was over a weekend, which is when we don't have any therapy. So he would have hours and hours and hours and hours to just pass alone in his room. And I wasn't going to go home if nobody could come be with him. So David and Travis came to be with him, and I got like updates all weekend long of them playing in the gym after hours, them like playing soccer and baseball and kickball with Michael, like trying to test his balance, test his coordination. They actually found a piano upstairs on one of the floors in the Shepherd Center. Now, Michael is a very beautiful piano player. He is a musician, and he played the piano in our church band prior to his accident. So music is a very regular part of Michael's life. Now, finding this piano over the weekend when David and Travis was with him was the first time he had laid eyes on his musical instrument since his accident. And he sat down, and though he could not recall or remember songs, his hands knew what to do. So he could play the piano. He couldn't tell you what he was playing, and he couldn't play a song on request, but he could still play the piano. It was beautiful. And now every song he played seemed to somehow end up being either joyful, joyful, or Chariots of Fire, which was really funny because I don't recall him ever playing either of those two songs. Definitely not Chariots of Fire, but why that was stuck in his head after this brain injury, who knows? The brain is wild. So they found this piano, and then it became a regular part of our routine during the day to like go up to this floor and play the piano. And every time he would sit down, maybe we'd think he was starting to tinker with a new song, but it would then turn into Chariots of Fire every time. It was really kind of funny. It was also really great just to have had Travis and David be there and regroup with me after their weekend there to just kind of like validate the hardship that this was to be with Michael and to experience what he was going through and what it was like to sit with him as a caregiver. Just, I mean, because when you're in it, you're like, is this, do I have the right perspective on this? Is this really as hard as it feels? And then to have both David and Travis be like, oh my goodness, I had no idea this is what you were experiencing. This is really hard. Bless you. Like it was validating to have someone come in and just recognize you're hard. And I think that's kind of what we all need every once in a while, is someone to recognize you're hard, right? So I got back actually on my birthday day. It was a Monday, and spent a normal day in therapy with Michael, and the therapist had gotten wind that it was my birthday. So everyone had kind of had him write a little card for me. So I got 3 or 4 birthday cards from Michael, which is really sweet, which is like a benefit of memory loss is you don't remember that you wrote someone a birthday card. So you get 4. And it was really sweet. Our cousins that live in Atlanta also took me to dinner on my birthday, and I can still remember the delicious lasagna of the restaurant they took me to. But leaving Michael, I think it was like 5 o'clock in the evening, they came to pick me up, and Michael was aware that I was leaving the room, and he was like, where are you going? Where are you going? And I didn't know what to, like, I didn't want to tell him I'm going to dinner. I knew that once I left the room, he would forget our conversation. So I knew it wouldn't necessarily hurt him to say, hey, I'm going to my birthday dinner. Because, well, for the last 23 years, he and I would go together for a birthday dinner. So this is the first time in our relationship that I am leaving him and going to my birthday dinner. And it just like, it broke my heart. And I don't even remember what I told him. I think because what was true is I was coming right back. I said, I'll be back. I'm going to eat dinner. You eat dinner here. And actually, I believe my friend Natalie, who also lived in Atlanta at the time, she came and sat with him just to provide some social interaction for him, because it was really difficult to leave him alone. I've said that over and over again, but it is so true. It was so hard to leave him alone. He didn't do well alone. So anyhow, I shed a few tears walking down the hall to my birthday dinner, leaving my husband upstairs, kind of delusional, in a hospital room, and going to celebrate. It was a really lovely time, and I was so spoiled and loved on by my family, and what a gift that I had that there. So overall, a really weird but a really great birthday. I shared it with Michael in physical presence, but it was a first of many new firsts that I don't ever want to repeat again, but it was fine. The next week, we got a visit from some of our closest friends, Will and Daisha. They drove down from Virginia Beach to visit us. Now, Will is one of Mike's best friends. They worked together. They are just 2 peas in a pod. And to have them come down the next weekend was such a relief and such a gift. And we just had the greatest time. And Michael remembered Will. He lit up when he saw Will walk around the corner, and of course Daisha too. But it was just the sweetest time together. We would play card games, like try to reintroduce card games to Michael. Now, Daisha, I should mention, she is also a therapist. She does occupational therapy. So she was just like, was itching to get her hands down and to see Michael and see what he was doing and learning, and what could we do with him in our off time, and how did the Shepherd Center therapists work. So it's really cool to have her there. And of course, Will just can entertain us for hours. So, and he did. And he loved to tease Michael by walking out of the hospital room and then coming right back in. And Michael would light up because he would see Will come in and he'd be like, Will, hey, every single time. So Will would come in, chat with him for a little bit, and then exit the room. And Michael would forget that he had been there. Even though me and Daisha were still in the room, even though Daisha and Will go together, he would forget. And Will would come around the corner again And Michael would light up and greet him, give him a big hug. He like hugs and lays his head on Will's shoulder every time. It was precious. And I mean, probably the first 5 times it was funny. Me and Daisha were laughing, and then Will kept doing it, and Michael loved it. But Daisha and I were like, okay, come on, Will. But it was just, you just got a kick out of the short-term memory loss. Will would also tease Michael by saying, hey, I just bought new gym equipment. It's in my garage and I've been working out more at home. Would you feel my muscle? Check it out. And Michael would feel his bicep, and every single time Mike would be like, wow. And it would just make Will feel awesome and like so loved on. And Mike would forget that he had just done that a few minutes ago. And it was a great weekend filled with laughter. Like, still didn't quite get the concept that, hey, we were in Atlanta. This is really special that Will and Daisha are here because this is a road trip that they made down here. Just their sacrifice of their time and coming to just spend the weekend hours with us, which again, we had 2 days, all of Saturday and all of Sunday, to fill with our time. And Michael was restless. And if they weren't there, then it was a lot of me just kind of like, okay, Michael, what do you want to do now in our off time? So the afternoon during the week and on the weekends, filling my time with Michael still looked a lot like, okay, well, let's go on a walk around our floor. And sometimes we would sign out and go walk in the, like, I think they called it like the secret garden, but there's an enclosed garden outside Shepherd Center. And we would go like take a walk around the loop. And if I could convince Michael to sit on the bench for a little while, we'd sit there, and then he would be like, okay, I'm ready now. And I'd say, okay, ready for what? He'd say, to go back. And I'd say, to go back where? And he'd say, to go back. And I'd say, to your hospital room? And he'd be like, no, just to go back there, back inside. And I'd be like, well, we could sit outside a little bit longer. We could take a walk again. We could, do you want to go, should we play a board game outside? And he just wouldn't want to. So we'd go back inside, go back upstairs, and I was still reading The Count of Monte Cristo to him. And there's this one particular time that was so funny to me. I was not sure if he was following the story. Now, I don't think he was following the story at all, just based on how he is still healing and his attention to some task is very minimal. So The Count of Monte Cristo is a very in-depth, detailed story. So I don't think he was following along. But remember, he's in an enclosed bed. So at night, Michael would get incredibly irritable, restless. It was like a decline. So any progression that he might have had during the day, seeming more like himself, around dusk at nightfall, it would go south, and he would become a very different character. So at one point I'm trying to put him to sleep because he needs rest. So he's in his enclosed bed, which has the zipper that he cannot open from the inside. So he's kind of like, just like rolling around on the bed. He's like sitting at the end of his bed, kind of like Indian style, just kind of like doing something on the walls of the enclosure. And I read this part of the book where one of the characters is Carlini, and I read the line that someone exclaims, and Carlini is dead. And Michael, in his enclosed bed, he like stops and he looks at me and he goes, Carlini is dead? And I remember like reading and being like, oh my goodness, this is hilarious right now. Like, yeah, Carlini is dead. Here it says that he's dead. And Michael like unfreezes and goes back to what he's doing. And so it made me think like, okay, is he paying attention? What does he care about Carlini? I don't know. But that was a really funny memory that stuck out. And then I just want to share a couple funny things. Like I had to find a humor in a lot of this. So there are a couple funny stories that they're worth putting down in this podcast for our memories. Part of Michael's damage was clearly done to the prefrontal cortex in his brain, where, he has no filter. no impulse control anymore. So he's just kind of saying whatever he wants as if he was not 39 years old. Like social cues, no, we don't have those anymore. So at one point, he's getting his vitals taken from one of his nurses, and she was doing his pulse ox, taking his temperature, getting his blood pressure. And he was like fighting her, saying, no, 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 don't do this, don't do this. And she goes, all right, next I'm going to take your blood pressure. And he goes, oh, I can't wait. And I looked at him, I was like, Michael, that's not very kind. But he would do that often, just kind of be snarky and talk back to the nurses, which Michael Logan Daubert would never do that in his life. He is the most polite, kind, respectful gentleman. So to see him responding that way with the nurses, I was like, who is this person? Another episode was when we were on a walk in the hallway with our care partner that weekend was Deborah. We were sitting down in the hallway, and another patient walks by with her caregiver. And Michael, sitting down with me and Deborah, looks at her and he goes, wow, she looks awful. And we were just like, Michael, you can't say those things. But it's kind of like that moment in the grocery store when your toddler's in your grocery cart and you're like, toddler, please don't call out the obvious. Please don't say what you see right now. And then they do it anyway. And you're like, I'm so sorry. This is a child. They don't know what they're talking about. And then you like zoom away real quick. That's what it was like to be with Michael. So I'm thinking, is this my future? Like, this is going to change some things. Like, the kids are going to laugh so hard at him. It's funny, but also I had these thoughts of like, is this our new normal? Are we going to just have no filter for the rest of our life? Another funny moment was in this secret garden down outside in the Shepherd Center. There is this statue that is in the middle of the path, and it's like a naked statue. And there's this big old booty made in nice green stone. And the first time we were walking back with one of the therapists, we had walked up the street to practice ordering at a restaurant, actually, which didn't go so well, but it was good practice. We had to start somewhere. So anyway, we're walking back from this therapy session, and we walk past the statue, and Michael just whacks the booty on his way. And we all died laughing because, I mean, I guess he just had the urge to do it. It was there. What else is he going to do? But then from that point on, every time we passed the statue, he had to give it a little smack on the behind. And then Michael would also make like faces at me whenever someone would come to take him to a therapy session. He would like turn around and look back at me and be like, help me, help me. Like he would whisper, help me, and look at me pleadingly, like as if they're taking him for torture or something. But he was perfectly fine. He would just always turn around and be like, help me. And I'd be like, I'm coming with you. I'm coming. We're fine. There are so many moments like these little examples that happened that just kept me giggling. Like I would laugh at it, but also I would be like, this is the most bizarre experience. I mean, this is funny and I love humor, but also this is my husband and this is so strange and bizarre to see him behaving this way. It's clearly because of the brain injury. So I had a lot of time for reflection, and I wasn't on social media in any normal capacity, but when his accident had happened in February, the outpouring of love and support and just like the prayer threads and every way that you all came around us during that time, there was a lot documented on social media. And it occurred to me, I want Michael to see this because the things that you all were saying were incredible. Like the way that you were pouring out your love over Michael and just the words of encouragement that you were speaking over him. You were talking about who he was and what he meant to you and the impact that he had had on you. So I started screenshotting. I went back all the way to February 5th and screenshotted every possible thing that I could so that I have this album saved of just this outpouring of love over Michael. And just knowing like, what a cool gift this will be for him to get to read it now as a recovering individual, getting to see the outpouring of love over him. Like, I often thought, at someone's funeral, we say such wonderful things about the person that we are saying farewell to. And the eulogies, like, they're beautiful. And you're like, this was so wonderful, except that person, did they ever know that their time here on earth? Like, so I kind of thought, how cool that Michael gets to see this, gets an opportunity that most people don't get to read just all this encouragement about him. So I have kept these things and I've begun to share them a little bit with him, but it's interesting because of his memory loss. He doesn't have the same baseline to be able to understand yet the depth of what this means. Like, he's still moved to emotion when he reads these things from people, but I believe that healing will still happen, hopefully. But another interesting thing, like, I felt like, okay, well, Michael has given me permission and consent to share all of our story with you all. So prior to his accident, like, Michael was in just like a funk, just this stage of life where he was struggling with like burnout. And oftentimes I felt like listening to the lies of the enemy, listening to the voice that was not true, of like questioning his value, questioning his relationship with someone else. Like, does this person even want to be my friend? Does this person even value me? Am I a bad friend because I feels like so and so doesn't want, you know, you name it. I feel like those are probably questions that a lot of us honestly have, these insecurities that then the enemy can use to create rifts and division, which should have no place. But Michael was in a season of that. And I would often say, like, babe, no, I think you're wrong. Like, I think this is just how you're perceiving things. But one thing that I have reflected on with memory loss, like, all of those things have kind of been washed away, like reset. And I have seen the outpouring of love from some of those specific people that he was questioning, um, and been like, wow, if you only knew how loved you were, Michael, you would be the happiest, most confident, most joyful man in the world. So, like, I see it as a gift. And also, how cool to kind of have resentment and bitterness and hurt feelings and like this vulnerability just washed away. And where he is today, he doesn't have memory of those feelings, he doesn't have memory of those nuances, doesn't have the negativity. So I'm like, could this be actually a gift? Like, it is sad to not have so much memory now, memory of the past, memory of really good things. So with the good things also went the bad things. Like, they're gone, good and bad. So it's sad to mourn the good things, I'm trying to say, but also, like, if he can rebuild his life, who he was, on this like steady, solid ground of not having a history of listening to lies and insecurities and doubts and negativity, like, that's a really, really cool place to be. And, not that I believe this is the reason any of this happened, but like, we're going to make the most of this, right? And it brought to mind something that I was reading in this book over the last year. I will share links to this book. That's also something that I'm working on, is getting links out to a lot of the recommended reading and materials and other things, but more to come on that. But I wanted to wrap up here with reading this beautiful excerpt from Catherine Wolfe. She wrote in her book, Treasures in the Dark. So I want to read you with this ending. Hope is an escape hatch from the what if loop, because it gives you and me permission to live the lives we have. It narrows our vision to work with what's in front of us. Hope puts to rest all of the lives we could have lived and gently reminds us, this is the one you've got. Don't waste it. You could call it resignation, but I call it relief. Each day, you and I can decide to trade those anxious what ifs for anticipatory what ifs. Like, what if none of this was an accident? What if God chose me for this? What if I start living like this is exactly the life I would have chosen? So those what if questions. Now, I don't know if I can fully stand here and say at this point in my journey, like, what if this is exactly the life that Michael and I would have chosen? Like, that's really painful still to say at this point, because I don't know how this is going to work out, right? I don't know the end of this story. I don't know how much he's going to recover still to this day. I don't. So it's really hard to be like, I would have chosen this, but I know enough. I have perspective enough to be like, hey, this story's not finished. Like, I know one viewpoint, and that's mine. But God has so much more going on that I don't know, I can't see, and I trust him. I trust that he's going to be working things for our good. So like those questions, what if God chose me for this? What if I start living like this exactly the life I would have chosen? Like, because of hope, I can let those other what would have been, I can let them lay to rest and hope that this life I have now is going to still be good. And so, what if he never gets those memories back? What if he can never read those social media posts and remember his old thoughts and then compare them to now and be encouraged? Like, what if he's just encouraged by reading how loved he is? And what if I have to reintroduce him to some of those people? And what if he can't recover the memory? That's sad, but also, what are we going to do with that? Like, he's going to rebuild who he was, and he's going to be surrounded by so much love from all of this. Like, that's a gift. And so I don't know if that is encouraging at all, but maybe some of that applies to you. Maybe hope in the dark places truly does exist. And that's what we keep fighting for. And that's what we keep moving on in hope with. So I will leave you with that today. We'll get to some more interesting things in our next episode, but I appreciate you joining me. We'll be together next time.